transitions don't fail because they're hard. They fail because no one takes the time to design it. No one takes the time to design it actually for the people. Is not a sale. It isn't a retirement date. It is the human system moving from one form to another. Whether it's leadership, ownership, or a role, you're absolutely moving from one form to another. Transition done well doesn't shrink people. It actually expands them.
Welcome to the Business Transition Roadmap. My name is Elizabeth Ledoux, and through my years, I have seen how communities thrive when business succession and transition are done well. Me and my team at the Transition Strategists have been helping business owners develop and implement transition strategies for over 30 years. And on this show, we want to help you by giving you the roadmap to a healthy business transition. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome back to the Business Transition Roadmap. My name is Elizabeth Ledoux, and today we're doing a solo podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about how transition does not have to be heavy, and we're going to talk about the 4 transition principles in depth and what I call the 3 C's that change everything. Most people think transition fails because it's complicated, and it just is a lot. And, that is absolutely true. It is complicated. Our belief is that what truly makes business transition and asset transitions fail is because they're avoided. People tend to avoid transitioning or even thinking about it because they believe it's painful, conflict-filled, identity-threatening, and there is a finality in transitioning. So what they do is they wait, they defer, and they it's kind of like, hey, we'll get to it maybe next year. And then next year comes, and 5 years down the road, here we are again. So it's our belief that transitions, they don't fail because they're hard. They really fail because no one takes the time to design it. And no one takes the time to design it actually for the people. Sometimes they're designing it for the tax or for the estate or for the protection. Those are all important things. And many, many, many times they forget about the people. So today I want to give you a different way to think about transition, one that creates motivation instead of resistance, gives you some clarity instead of fear, and creates the momentum instead of you truly wanting to avoid it. So we're going to talk about, again, the 4 transition principles. And then there are 3 threads that I think run through all of them that are crucial for an excellent transition. So transition, is not a sale. It isn't a retirement date. It is not a title change. Transition really is a human system moving from one form to another, if you think about it. So I know there are other kinds of transitions out there, asset transitions, where there's actually a transaction. This particular one, when you're transitioning assets and a business, there are multiple transitions going on. One is the actual transaction of the asset, but also basically woven in and through that is this human system of moving from one form to another, transitioning, whether it's leadership, ownership, or a role, you are absolutely moving through from one form to another. When I think about the 4 principles of transition, there are 3 threads that I think flow through those, and you need them inside of this so that as a human being, 1, you can flow through your transition well, but 2, you can actually lead others as well. So I call those the 3 C's. 1 is clarity, 2 is confidence, and 3 is communication. When those 3 things exist, transition feels purposeful, and it can even be energizing because you have clarity about where you're going, you have confidence in what you're trying to achieve, and you have great communication bringing along those that are serving the business, serving the asset, and also are part of the people that you love. So they're able to come along with you. When you don't have those 3, sometimes even simple transitions can feel absolutely impossible. The 4 principles that I'm about to share with you, they don't sit on top of the 3 C's, but by using those, that's how clarity, confidence, and communication get threaded through your transition, and they do that over time. So let's jump into the first transition principle. It's a journey, not an event. I wrote a book on this years ago. The book is still out there, and many, many people have read it and gotten a lot of value out of it. The concept of it's a journey, not an event came about because I've been doing this for 30 years. I used to listen to people go, "Oh, I'm not ready to exit." And I'm like, well, it's not exit. It's a journey. It's a transition. We have to move people from one place to another. So sometimes people think of a transition as almost like a cliff. And that is really challenging to think about. 1 minute I'm here, next minute I'm not here. I'm in a totally different place. And that I think is very disruptive to people. So again, it keeps them from moving forward. So if you treat a transition like an event, it's a deal, it's a date, it's a decision, it's a declaration. But real transition happens long before all of those moments. And it also happens even after them, especially if you're in a family-owned company. When transition's treated like an event, people do tend to back off and they tend to panic, and sometimes emotions spike if you're in it, like a death or something like that. Of course, emotions are spiking. Conversations, they get shut down, and many, many times the avoidance that you find, that increases. So you're trying to not have all of those happen. And when you treat transition as a journey, something truly changes. The pressure drops, curiosity increases. So people become curious and they become more open. Learning actually replaces fear. So knowledge and learning replaces fear. That's one place where communication is threaded through, one of our 3 C's. So journeys, they allow you to test. They allow iteration. So you can try it, and if it doesn't work, try something else. They allow mistakes and they allow growth. So the journey does that for you. If you think about events demand perfection. And what perfection does is kill momentum, because you can't play, you can't explore, you can't test and learn. And that's what your successors need to be able to do. And by the way, if you're a transitioner, you need to be able to do that too, because you don't know what the future holds, and you don't actually know if the invitation that you have for somebody, if they're going to say yes or no to coming in or decide it's not for them. So as we walk through this idea of it's a journey, not an event, one of our threads comes out, the clarity thread. Because if you make it a journey, then you can create clarity along the way. You can start by creating clarity by thinking and designing, and then you also can create clarity as you walk through your journey and your implementation. And the reason why that's true is because journeys have stages and they have checkpoints, and they allow you to know where you are. And even if you don't, if you're not keeping up, or if you're moving too fast, you don't even have to know the final answer yet. You just know that you're moving, you're learning, you're growing, and you're on this journey. And it's pretty exciting. Let's move on to principle 2. Principle 2, the transition principle 2, is pass it forward, not let go. When you think about letting go, that might be one of the most damaging phrases in a transition. If you're a person who has been doing something for 10 or 20 years, I have a business owner that we recently brought on last year as a newer client. He started his business 50 years ago. He's been doing this for 50 years. Wow. I think it's ingrained in his day-to-day being, this business. So when he thinks about letting go, oh my gosh, that's very difficult, because it implies loss, can imply you're not relevant anymore. It can imply disappearance, or that you're no longer going to be there or welcome. So of course people resist it. And they often do it without even realizing why. If you think about, instead of letting go, passing forward is different. Passing forward means that your wisdom still matters. Your experience still counts. Your stewardship continues. And you're really not stepping away from importance. What you're doing is you're stepping into a different altitude, if you will, of leadership. So this principle builds confidence, and it builds confidence not only in you, but also your successors. So the confidence comes from not, I guess, walking along thinking that you don't care, and that's the perception that other people see around you. But it comes from knowing that your contribution still matters, and it just is different as a transitioner. The successors, they're receiving something that's passed forward. So it isn't for them about filling someone else's shoes. That helps them. It's about earning trust while building what is their own authority. They have to build their own authority. They need that. They are not you. And so how do they walk into this with some confidence? Confidence to know that they have the task to do and they get to build their own authority so that people will see and focus on them and follow them while you're helping them and passing that forward. So a healthy transition is not clinging, and it's also not disappearing. And it's not controlling from the shadows. It's an intentional transfer that's designed to happen over time. Moving on to transition principle 3, we call this transition 3.0, and it's a term that we coined just to help people understand kind of how transition planning has shifted over time and what might be a better practice than the first two versions that have been in practice for a very long time. So most people are still operating under an outdated version of transition. And even if they don't realize it, that's really what's happening. So transition 1.0, pretty simple. As a transitioner, you would work and work and work. And you would figure out how your estate and how these assets were going to be transitioned upon your death. And people would find out about what was in that will and how, what was going to happen with these assets, how they were going to be transitioned or disposed of. They would find that out at death. So your lawyer might be reading that to them. And I can only imagine what it's like sitting behind a desk at a lawyer's office with maybe my siblings around me and my mother. And everybody's listening to what was decided and what was decided for them, not knowing prior to. It's kind of a surprise. Transition 2.0 takes the surprise out. So basically, Transition 2.0 says that you have walked through and you have done all of the work like you would in Transition 1.0. Big difference is you tell the people who are going to be a part of your transition prior to your death. So they learn about it ahead of time. Neither one really matches how we're living today or our family systems. And both of those take the opportunity for that next generation to have any input into it. They don't have any way of saying, hey, I'd really like to have this. It would fit into my life better. It's more like, here's what you're going to get. Be happy with it. And that's sort of the attitude that goes around it. Now, it is an opportunity of a lifetime to have any gift of any sort. Wow, what an opportunity. And wouldn't it be better if that opportunity actually was something that they would love to have and love to see, and it fits into their lives and what they want to do for themselves and also for their future generations. Transition 3.0, it helps to reflect that. People are able to come in the design phase, and you're able to understand not only what you want, but also what they are interested in. They're able to give you some insight. You're able to learn about them. They're able to learn about you. We're talking about transitioners and successors, 2 different generations. And then everybody knows what's going to happen. It doesn't have to happen today. It doesn't have to happen at death. It can happen on a journey. And as you evolve, you're making commitments maybe for the near future. Like, hey, let's go try this. Let's explore this. Let's see if this makes sense for us. Is it possible to do this? would we, what's the tax consequence around it? What kind of structure do we need to get this in place so that we can actually make the assets kind of the wind under the wings of the people who are the ones who are going to receive it and or purchase it, right? Because you can have a purchase in this situation also, and not be an anchor that they get stuck with. So transition 3.0, it is exploratory, it's an adventure, it's flexible, and it's staged, and it's very human. Going back to our 3 C's, this requires clarity and helps you to create clarity as you're walking through the strategy work and the design. It also gives you confidence because, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to know that everything you worked for is going to continue on and that people actually want to do it, right? That clarity. And then there's the confidence. And then there's the communication, right? It's not a one-time communication like in version 1.0 and 2.0. This is an ongoing communication. It's fantastic. When roles are evolving, silence creates confusion, and confusion turns into stories, and stories sometimes turn into conflict. This transition 3.0 replaces that big, scary conversation with ongoing, normal dialogue and interaction. And for me, the value there is it's fun to work with your successors. They're smart. They have good energy. They have more energy maybe than you do, and new ideas and fun things. So I love the idea of having ongoing normal dialogue and making this a journey. Principle 4, clarity of the next adventure. Gosh, this one unlocks a lot of momentum. No one transitions well in a vacuum. If the person passing forward this asset and this knowledge doesn't know what's next, what happens is they hover. They just sit there and hover. They can interfere. And sometimes just to be relevant, they'll reinsert themselves because they really don't have another thing to do or another place to go. If the person stepping in doesn't know why they're doing it, they'll hesitate as well. Their next adventure is not clear either. So they'll defer it. They will maybe stay small because they're unsure. And what happens is they actually don't engage in the way the transitioner needs them to. So clarity of the next adventure pulls people forward. It creates that momentum, and it answers some simple but really powerful questions like, what am I moving toward? Why does this matter now? And who am I becoming next? This is where the transition stops being about endings and it starts being about possibility. And this is where it can really actually become a lot of fun when the transitioners and the successors, when they're helping each other create possibility in each other's lives, going back to the transition 3.0 concept. So when these 4 principles are in place and the 3 C's are honored, threaded throughout the entire process, people start earlier. They talk more openly, they experiment, and they design instead of move forward. They take small steps forward, which is really important. The transition becomes creative, it becomes relational, and it becomes energizing. And here's the most important truth. Transition done well doesn't shrink people, it actually expands them. So if you're an owner, a leader, or a successor listening to this podcast, which, I'm so grateful that we're able to have this podcast and help people, just know that you don't need to solve everything. You do not need a final plan. And most importantly, you don't need to wait. You need to start the journey. And I want you to start with clarity, build confidence, and communicate early because it is so enlightening and so wonderful. Very, very energizing. Transition really isn't something to survive. It's actually something to shape. And when you do, it can become one of the most meaningful chapters in your life. So thank you so much for listening to this solo podcast. I hope that you got some good nuggets out of it. Think about those 4 transition principles. How are you applying them in your lives right now or in your life? Are you including anybody else in this journey with you? And are you carrying all the weight on your own shoulders, or are you including somebody else, which can be a lot of fun? And I'd like to invite you to come to the Transition Strategists website and take a look at our Evolved program. It really is designed and created just to engage multiple generations and to help you create that clarity, the confidence, and the communication that you need and want to have a wonderful journey and a successful transition. So in the show notes, you can look and you'll find that link to our website. I'll look forward to having you explore, and best of luck in your exploration and your transition. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Transition Roadmap. If you're ready to start shaping your own transition strategy, which I'm really hoping that you are, our team at the Transition Strategists would love to offer you a free discovery strategy session where you can explore what might be good for you and just some new ideas. We've got a new perspective and a new approach with people first. And a lot of what we talk about, nobody has ever really done before. So I want to encourage you to think about that and to go to transitionstrategist.com/discovery to schedule your call if you are even curious. It's free, no pressure. We'd love to talk to you. And by the way, if you're a successor or if you've got one in your business, you'll also want to check out for sure Your Next Gen Friend, A Successor's Guide to Business Transition. It's a podcast that's hosted by my successor, Andrea Carpenter. She's incredible. And this one is specifically designed for rising leaders in family businesses. So thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on the Business Transition Roadmap.